Hello and welcome. John Flynn here from Flynn Real Estate, serving Southern Ontario, based out of the Niagara region. Here once again to give my honest and professional opinion regarding the 2023 Canadian housing market. So this week, we're going to get into the CREA stats for January. We're going to look into why I think we're in the biggest real estate crash in Canadian history right now. We're going to take a special look at February's history and why we should watch out. And then I'm going to compare Canadian housing to toilet paper. All right, so let's start with the Canadian stats, the CREA stats. So the headline this month, Canadian home sales begin 2023 at a 14-year low. At the same time, our number of new listings are at their lowest level since the year 2000. Now, that's just new listings, not all listings. So anyway, let's look at the data. Here is the monthly sales. And of course, you can see, yes, it's still trending downwards. Like a broken record. I don't know how many months it can keep trending down, but they're going to pick up in the spring most likely. And it's well below the 10-year moving average, as you can see. And the highlights from January are national home sales declined 3% month over month in January. Actual, not seasonally adjusted monthly activity came in 37.1% below January 2022. The number of newly listed properties rose 3.3% month over month. The MLS home price index declined by 1.9% month over month and was down 12.6% year over year. The actual, not seasonally adjusted national average price posted an 18.3% decline year over year in January. So I just want to take a quick look at the aggregate HPI, the MLS HPI, and you can see it's the largest month over month decline since 2006. So things are obviously not looking good in the market still. And from CREA's senior economist, early 2023 feels a lot like 2019, where after a year in which it became much harder to qualify for a mortgage, everyone was wondering if the market would pick up in the spring, said Sean Cathcart, CREA's senior economist. In 2019, the market started off slow as there wasn't much to buy. It took off once spring listings started to come out, with the Bank of Canada increasingly signaling the rates are now at the top. It's possible the spring market this year could also surprise, particularly in areas where prices have been stable or are now stabilizing. Whoa. All right. Interest rates are just a little bit different than 2019 there. So I wouldn't get your hopes up. In 2019, I think the Bank of Canada interest rate was like 1.5% or something. And of course, we all know what it is now, 4.5. So not comparable in that sense. But anyway, let's keep reading. Buyers are likely feeling increasingly confident in taking on variable rate mortgages, and 2023 will probably be a good window of opportunity to be able to engage in a calmer home search and buying experience following the intense market conditions of the last few years. So from all the mortgage professionals I've talked to, most buyers, or the recommendations to buyers, are taking on a short-term fixed rate, of course, until variable rates come down. Most people are not taking on variable rates, so I don't know where this information comes from. And looking at the market balance, the blue bar graph here are the months of inventory, and it has increased again in January. We're up to about 4.3 months of inventory now. Here is the year-over-year percentage change for January for each province, and of course, Canada as a whole. You can see there's two provinces, Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland, that are still in positive territory. The rest have declined, so only two provinces left. I just wanted to compare those quickly to the last 2 months. And you could see in December, there was still three provinces that were in positive growth year over year. And for November, there was four provinces that were still positive year over year price growth. So I'm guessing soon we're going to have no provinces left, probably in another month or two. But of course, we'll keep looking at that. And here's the average residential price for CREA, or as CREA reports it. And you can see both the HPI aggregate and the average price are still declining. And now I'd just like to formulate my own statistics based off this data, because there's some stats that I think should have been included in the release, but of course they don't do that. So here we have the average price by month, and the national average has declined 2.5% month over month from December to January, or $16,000. 18.2% year over year from January, or $136,000. CREA had it at 18.3%, but whatever, close enough. And we are now down 25% from the February peak, which is huge. The average house has declined $204,000 in the last 11 months. It was hard to find info on other real estate declines because they were so long ago, but I'm guessing that 25% is probably the biggest decline we've ever seen in Canada, nationally anyway. I know that certain big cities have dropped 50% and whatnot in certain slowdowns, but 25% nationally or $204,000 is huge. And definitely that dollar figure, nothing ever beats that. So we are in right now, I should say, the biggest housing crash that Canada has ever seen. Now, on that same chart, I just wanted to point out about February, because the beginning of the years are always great. And I think we're going to see a pretty good February with month over month increases in sales. Maybe the sales, not so much, but we're going to see price increases, which is normal for the beginning of the year. February is the best month of the year historically for month over month price increases, percentage wise or dollar value. So let's look at that same chart. And I pointed out the Februaries here going back to 2017. And you can see every year, February has been a stellar month. So I'm expecting February this year to beat January's numbers. Let's look at this in a different set of data, just looking at the percentages as opposed to the price points. So this is using the same data as the previous chart. And you can see February every year almost is the number one month. So if you look at 2022, it was the biggest month of the whole year, 9% increase year over year. Same with 2021, 9%. No other month came close to that. In 2020, besides June, which is after the lockdown was the biggest month, which was an anomaly. But if it wasn't for the lockdown in 2020, February would have been the biggest month. 2019 wasn't the biggest month, but it was still one of the bigger ones. 2018, it was the biggest month. 2017, by far, it was the biggest month, over 10% month over month growth in 2017. So I guess the point is, don't get too excited and don't get caught in that trap when people start coming out after February and March, when CREA releases the stats saying like the market's rebounded. February, again, great month. We'll see some declines into the spring, most likely. So just, again, be careful and don't get caught in that trap. So next, I just want to touch on this story. It was in the news, and I'm sure there's many stories like this, but this was in the news, so I can reference it here. This was from CBC, and this couple was from London, Ontario. They bought their home in March 2022. Why this Ontario couple calls the purchase a nightmare. Mortgage on London home of Fernando Santos and Gustavo Pereira went from $2,800 to $4,400 a month. So I'm sure this is an all too common story right now. Let's look at the details and see what it says. Fernando Santos and Gustavo Pereira of London, Ontario knew the housing market was overpriced in March 2022, but felt pressure to become homeowners, so they bought a 3-bedroom home in the East End for $730,000. Everybody said to us, you should buy as soon as you can. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. Just buy and get into the market. So I just want to point out, the reason they bought the house was not really because they wanted it or it was the right time. I'm sure they wanted it, but they were pressured. It was fear. They bought the house because of fear, which is a terrible reason to buy anything. Today, they're sitting on a mortgage with a variable rate currently at 5.6% on a house that has fallen in value by an estimated $150,000 and paying $4,400 a month, $1,600 more than they had anticipated. These guys are typical Canadians. They're immigrants. They make good money. They're from Brazil. They make $140,000 combined. On the weekends, the couple's work isn't done. Both drive for Uber Eats and Instacart in an effort to offset their bills. When you have like 60% of your full income going towards your mortgage, you pretty much don't have anything left. Plus, we have to eat, right? Said Santos. So I feel bad for these guys. They were obviously pressured by themselves and by other people to get into the housing market, because if they felt or feared if they didn't, they would never be able to afford a house. And this brings us back to 2020, how I'm comparing Canadian housing to toilet paper. Remember when people were like lining up or taking all the toilet paper? Again, some of them did it because of fear, but there was 3 main reasons I saw that people were doing it. They were doing it because of greed. They were doing it because of fear of missing out on not having toilet paper. And some people were doing it because of speculation that if they didn't get it, there wouldn't be any left for them, or they needed more for the future because they wouldn't have supplies. We're going to have supply chain issues. Some people even did it because of speculation that they were going to sell it. And that was the case with cleaning supplies too, right? So again, 3 reasons: fear, greed, and speculation, which is very similar to our housing market or our housing market last year. And if you look at the definition of greed, a selfish and excessive desire for more of something, such as money, than is needed. And the people, whether they were buying toilet paper or whether they're buying excess of homes or multiple homes, they didn't care, or you don't care, about other people that might need it. Now, everyone seems to be a little more passionate when it comes to toilet paper. Oh, they should have left it for people. But when it comes to housing, they don't, because they figure that's their retirement. It's a bigger investment. But again, we have a lot of greed and a lot of speculation in the housing market. And then many people are left fearing, whether it's toilet paper that they're never going to be able to get any, or they're going to, go without it, or housing. These people were fearful that if they didn't buy now, they would never be able to afford. And it's a legitimate fear. So you have people that are not greedy. You have people that were not speculating, but kind of forced to do something because they would be left out if they didn't, and stuck renting for these high prices. So again, I feel bad for these people. They're victims of the market, in my opinion. But hopefully going forward, we can all learn a lesson and things will normalize at some point. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments as always. And until next week, I'll see you then.